Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or your digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organization. Each and every episode, we sit down with leaders from various fields, just like you're grabbing a cup of coffee with them. We dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you write text messages that people actually want to read, that people will read them and then respond, and then be able to build relationships instead of breaking relationships? Okay, that's what we're diving into on today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. Welcome back. This is the place where leaders learn how to communicate with clarity, with connection, and impact. I'm your host, Jason Raitz. And today we're getting into something really practical. We are diving into the weeds on this, and it's often overlooked, but how can we write text that people actually want to read? How can we write text that people actually want to respond to? Because we're in the week 4 of this series. Thank you so much for listening. If you've missed some of the episodes, make sure you go back through. And thank you. Those of you who have pressed follow on Apple Podcasts, those of you who have subscribed, those of you who download each episode and listen, those of you who watch on YouTube, I can't thank you enough. It's just absolutely huge. If you could take a second and go write a review, brownie points. If it's a great review, if it's a 5-star review, because that would be absolutely huge. That helps more people find out about Speak with People. And major brownie points if you share an episode link on one of your social media pages. Would be absolutely huge. I can't thank you enough for doing that. It's just huge. Well, we're in a series called Texting with People because we really want to get down to the idea that how do we as leaders text in a way that's effective, that's healthy, and we're not a jerk over text. Have you gotten a message from someone that is just so jerkish you don't even understand what's going on? Because here's the thing. Texting as a leader isn't just about sending messages. Okay, again, this podcast is for leaders. So if you're listening and you're like, I'm not a leader, well, let's re-examine that. A leader is someone who has influence. Thank you, Dr. John C. Maxwell. He coined the phrase, leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. So if you have influence positively or negatively, you are a leader. That could be in your home. That could be in your friend group. That could be on Twitch. That could be in your video game chat. That could be at your workplace. That could be in your kid's school, wherever it's at. If you have influence, you're a leader. And so when you start texting as a leader, you got to understand it's not just about sending messages, okay? It's about building trust, showing empathy. It's about creating moments of connection. It's about creating moments of connection. But here's the reality. Let's be real. Many of us do the opposite, right? We text long, rambling messages that don't do any of that. Or, like we've talked about in the series, we text in a way that immediately puts people in a corner. And so if you're a texter who texts out of agitation, frustration, anger, come on, people are not going to want to respond. You're not building any type of connections that way. Now, you may be frustrated, but here's the reality. Stop sending frustrated text messages. You're damaging the relationship. If you're frustrating, great. You're allowed to have those feelings. If you need to communicate something about that frustration, pick up the phone and call them or go meet them face to face. Enough communicating over text message. Enough communicating your frustrations, your anger, your manipulation, your passive aggressiveness over text message. You've just got to stop doing that. It's just not going to be helpful. And I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of over-explained 5-paragraph text that instantly feel overwhelming. And if you're the one you've ever sent one, you probably have to ask yourself, did I need to say all that? Did I need to say all that? And I'm pointing the finger at myself here today, friends. Hi, my name is Jason, and I text at people at times. Everybody together? Hi, Jason. Yeah, that's the reality. And I'm trying to change it because, especially in our world where communication is getting shorter, sharper, more consistent, we have to be ready. So, today's episode, we want to strike the balance. We want to craft text messages that are concise, that are clear, that are packed with value. And so let's make sure we cut the clutter. We cut the misinformation. We cut the non-conciseness, and let's get some warmth into our text messages. Because here's the reality. Some of you are just jerks. You are at-holes, right? We talk about this all the time. Do you speak with people? Do you speak at them? When I speak with people, I breathe life into them. I build bridges. When I speak at people, I suck the life out. I put up barriers. I'm like a vampire. I just suck the life out. I'm an at-hole. So we want to make sure we do that. Let's go back to this for a second, though. As a leader, communicate how you communicate matters. And we've talked about this on the podcast. This podcast exists because we want you to become an exceptional communicator. You want to succeed in life, invest in your communication skills. You invest in your golf swing, you invest in your kids' piano lessons, you get the course on how to write emails. All those things are great. But if you don't communicate in a healthy and effective way, nobody is going to listen unless, like we've talked about, you step into communication's dirty little secret, which in the short term, you can get people to listen, respond if you communicate out of fear, out of control, out of manipulation. And we've all been at organizations, we've all had relationships where people have communicated that way. And you only get to a certain point, and then you get to a breaking point, and you're like, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. So why not bypass all of that? And why not just from the get-go make it a goal to strive to be a healthy and effective communicator? Why not just say, hey, I'm in this because I want to build bridges, not barriers in my communication. And when you do that, your influence actually increases. In your business, your referrals will increase, your revenue will increase. In your personal life, your relationships will be more connected than they have ever been. So that's why we're doing this. And so the reality is that in 2025, texting is one of the primary ways that we communicate with our team members. We communicate with our clients. We just do it. And so we've got to get to that place where we find the balance, because over texting can, uh, be bad, and under texting can be bad. It can damage trust. Over texting, under texting, sharing paragraphs upon paragraphs, or sharing nothing. Do you have the report done? No. Are you going to work on it? No. Those kind of things, they damage trust. And so let's talk about a couple of the pitfalls, the common pitfalls of texting. Now, those of you who are older like I am, there was a very important game in our childhood. And I know some of you are already thinking it, you fellow Gen Xers, but it was called Pitfall, and it was an incredible game. But here are some of the pitfalls of texting at people, some of the pitfalls of poor texting, long rambling messages. Long rambling messages. Now, maybe at that point, it would be so much better just to record a voice message. Okay? Poop. Recording a voice message. Done. All right. Perfect. Maybe at that point, if you've got to go long, maybe it's time to switch to an email. But even an email, I mean, think through how much do you ramble? How much do you ramble? Another common pitfall is cold or curt texts. Sometimes being brief can backfire. And so, how cold are your texts? Part of the series is we're going to teach you how to warm up your text messages. So when people pick up their phone and they open up text and they're like, oh, I want to respond to that. Cold text you don't want to respond to. Text that puts somebody in the corner. How come you don't answer when I text? How come it took you forever? No, you are not going to get a response that way. You are not going to get somebody that is going to want to text you back. It's just not going to happen. And so if you want to craft text that people actually want to read, be clear, be concise, be impactful. And you can do that through the warmth. So another pitfall. Oh, geez. Uh, the wall of text, right? This is kind of like long rambling ones, but this is when you just have to like keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling. That's the reality. That's what happens time and time again. Another one is if you text back too quickly, right? How come you didn't respond? Have you saw my last text? All of those different kind of things. So we gotta steer clear from some of the pitfalls. Now, let's craft some text that actually resonate with people. So start with intention. Before you even text, ask what's the goal of this message? What's the goal? What am I trying to communicate? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to, come across? How am I trying to communicate in a way that people care? People want to respond. People need to hear. Start with intention. What's the goal? And then use short paragraphs, like even bullet points if it's appropriate. Bullet points on text a little bit more difficult, but try to get right to it. Not everybody needs the "Hey, haven't heard from you for a while. Hope you're doing well." Kind of the warm up text. We've talked about this on the podcast before. There are 4 different types of communication styles. Personal, right? Feelers, they like to they like to dive deep in the relationships. How you feeling about this? Analytical, they love to be communicated with data, cold hard facts. Intuitive, they love the process, step-by-step plan. Visionary, they love the big picture. You know what? Give me the big picture. Don't give me this ton of little details. So if for my life, I text a lot with my wife, right? Married almost 28 years. And the reality is she is an intuitive communicator. She thinks in processes. So if I come at her with cold hard facts or the big picture, she's just immediately going to start thinking through the process of it. So I'm going to communicate to her the way that she's already thinking. Uh, Always, always, always. If you want to insert warmth and you actually want people to respond and read your messages and not want to put away their phone or throw their phone at a wall, respond with empathy. Open with empathy. I heard what was going on in your life. I want you to know I'm praying for you. Boy, it's been a while since we've talked. I'm sorry for that. I would love to catch up on the phone. Use empathy. Use empathy. And then here's kind of another big one. If you're going to write and craft texts that resonate, clarity trumps complexity. Clarity trumps complexity. Ditch the jargon. Keep it simple, like especially in a text message. If that's just you, if you're super smart, that great. You don't have to be somebody that you're not, but be clear. Be super clear. Um, and I think I've mentioned this in every episode, but I just want to mention it again because it's so terribly important. Never text something that would potentially ruin your life or cause great embarrassment if somebody screenshot it, sent it to somebody else. Like lives can be ruined depending on what you share. And so think through all those things. Okay. Now, for those of us, how do we sound concise without sounding cold? Because some of us are just like, get to the business. Like, what are you trying to share here? So start with simple shifts, like please send over the report by Friday. Shift it to, hey, can you send the report by Friday at 3 p.m.? Let me know if that's possible. Instead of, I want it on Friday. Make those simple kind of shifts. I want pizza for dinner. How do you feel about pizza for dinner? I mean, these kind of simple shifts, people are going to want to communicate with you over text message, and it's important. So you can be concise without sounding cold. Like read it back through. Make sure that you're not coming across as cold. Let me give you a couple practical tips. Break up the smaller the longer messages into smaller digestible texts. Like Break them up. You don't have to write, an entire book. Uh, depending on your personality, use emojis. Use lighthearted language. People can't sometimes read your tone over text message. So stay away from the all caps. If it's exciting and you want to put 17 exclamation points, great. But make sure that people can interpret what those are either way. Uh, giant practical skill, huge lesson. Pause before you press send. Pause. Now, I've a couple of people in my life. My thumbs don't want to work sometimes. And I don't want to some things are just not, spelled correctly. There's a couple people in my life that it infuriates them when I leave incorrectly spelled words in a text message. Well, it's easy. I could correct those words and I don't have to infuriate them. So, do a couple of those kind of things. So here's the reality. You can text to build trust. You can text in a way that absolutely builds trust. So let's do that. Let's text in a way where you don't sound cold. Let's text in a way that you craft messages that people want to read. They're clear, they're impactful, they're worth reading. They're not filled with fluff, and they're intentional. They get right to it. You can also use texting to speak life into people. And this is the thing that I love a ton. Like every single day, you have opportunities to speak life into people with your text messages. So do it. If you think of somebody, send them a text and say, I just thought of you. I wanted to say thank you for all the things that you do in my life. Incredible. Okay, we've got 2 more weeks left in this series. It's going to wrap up rather quickly. I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. If you have not visited compassion.com, please do that. I've been trying to tell you throughout this series about compassion and how you can actually save a child from poverty. I mean, it's just massive. $39 a month, you can save them from poverty. They'll have food. They'll have education. They'll have medicine. $39 a month. Some of us spend $39 a month on our drink of choice, right? That would be absolutely huge to be able to do. So compassion.com. Also, thank you for sharing this podcast. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for writing a review. Can't thank you enough. Big things happen in 2025 for me and the podcast. One of them being my first book is going to come out, and I'm excited to share that with you. I'm excited to share that with the world. I need your help. So I can't thank you enough. We'll see you on the next episode of the Speak with People podcast. Thank you for listening to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. Thank you for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you for every like and every comment. Every single time you cut and copy a link and send it to a coworker or a friend, it absolutely means the world, and it helps each other transform our communication skills. Lastly, don't forget about a great resource that's available to you, our communication skills library. At the end of every episode, we ask each guest their favorite speaker, their favorite podcast, their favorite book, and we've compiled all of those resources together to give you an amazing library to continue your growth and development. Thank you again for being a listener and for being a part of the Speak with People community.